That was tremendous. Holy crap. Your clicking finger has brought you to Behind the Buzz, a Publicfit Theater Company's occasional podcast discussing the myriad details that make up the production of our season of plays and stage readings. This is episode number 3 of season number 2, and today we'll be talking about our upcoming stage reading of Dominique Morisso's Skeleton Crew. I'm Joe Kukin, producing director here at APF, and as always, I'm joined by artistic director Anne-Marie Pereth.
Hi.
Hello. Just not as sultry as usual, but just as bubbly. As always, later we'll be talking with Skeleton Crew director Jason Nias and cast member Brianna McCollum. But first, I want to remind everybody that we've really only just started talking about the readings in these podcasts. And because we're recording and releasing these just a few scant weeks before the actual performances, that means you're almost certainly going to be, that we're almost certainly going to be discussing some potential spoilers. So if you want to remain blissfully ignorant of each and every Skeleton Crew plot point, maybe come see the show at the Flamingo Library on Friday, January 28th at 7, or again at 2 o'clock on Saturday, January 29th, and then maybe come back and dig a little bit deeper by listening to this conversation. But since you're here now, you might as well hear just a little bit about the play and what it's about. I mean, in broad strokes, Skeleton Crew takes place in a fictional Detroit auto plant, specifically in a division called a stamping plant, where long-held jobs are, of course, slowly being whittled away. But more than that, it seems to be a play about occupational identity and how we define ourselves through our jobs. AM, does that sound about right?
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you how I came to the play and the circumstances.
And you put in the season. There must be a reason for that.
Yeah. Well, as we've mentioned before in previous podcasts, during the lockdown, we read between like 40 and 50 plays. And Skeleton Crew was one of those plays. And actually, Jason was at that reading. And I was listening to a ton of podcasts while I was gardening in the backyard. And what was happening in the podcast world was Amazon workers were trying to get, they were trying to unionize.
Right.
And while this play already has an established union, in the play, it made me really think about the systemic problems that we have in the United States and our country in terms of how the workforce is being treated so poorly.
And that's a popular topic. Well, popular. That's a common topic these days now. Just the strength of workers for the long time, for the last 2 years, we've called them all essential workers, and then sort of denied them benefits, denied them hours, denied them any sort of living wage, and it's still they're essential workers. It's become a common motif now in America.
Yeah, so I think that's why it's a really good show to put in the season, because we live in a community, in the Las Vegas community, where we have a ton of essential workers that work in the tourist industry, and a lot of them are quitting their jobs because they're not being treated well, they're not being paid enough. And so I think that's what makes the play very relevant. Also, I was very interested in the idea that the playwright wanted to write about her own community. Being from Detroit. She was marrying playwrights before her, like August Wilson, who wrote about his community in Pittsburgh, and he was marrying playwrights before him, like Clifford Odets, who was writing about his community. And so she's just carrying that torch and giving us a bird's eye view into what it's like to live in Detroit and be part of the automotive union community in a certain period of time.
That's a really interesting comparison. The comparison between auto workers and their sort of day-to-day grind and the tourism industry that we see out here in Vegas. There don't seem to be on the surface a lot of similarities there, other than this idea of constant work or not constant work. What am I missing?
Well, it's usually people of color who are, in these essential workers jobs, and it's the Latinx community, and it's people who are struggling economic. It's a class issue, and so that's where the tie-in is for me.
Right.
Okay.
Let's us two white guys. Let's bring in, let's bring in Jason and Brianna and figure this out together, because I'm starting to feel, like I'm making huge, giant leaps and assumptions with no real personal background. So let me introduce our two guests today. Jason Nias is the founder and creative director of Melody, which he describes as an experimental body percussion company, performing and teaching literally worldwide. He started as an NCAA gymnast and then went on to perform with Stomp and Step Africa, as well as with Cirque du Soleil and Cause, Arcana, and also One Drop. He was the assistant choreographer and acrobatic stunt double for the film Stomp the Yard, Homecoming, and has starred in several independent films, including Finding My Precious Basquiat and Bubblegum and Broken Fingers. Jason received his Bachelor of Arts in Theater from the University of New Mexico and is currently a teaching artist with Cirque du Soleil's New Arts Nomads program. Does that all sound pretty accurate?
Yeah, most of it's accurate.
Okay.
The very last thing.
Oh, no.
Cirque du Soleil does not have an Arts Nomads program anymore because of the pandemic. Here we are.
Oh, really? But you did do that.
Yeah, I did
before
that
it
for
went away.
Literally all the way up until the day the world shut down. Yeah, I was a teaching artist with them.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
And then the world shut down.
And then the world shut down.
Oh, good Lord.
And then they went bankrupt. And then,
and they went bankrupt.
Yeah.
Oh, good
They're
Lord.
rebuilding. They have 4 shows back up in Vegas now, but they did not bring that department where we can be teaching artists anymore. So
Yet. They haven't brought it back yet.
Yeah.
And let me introduce Bree as well. Brianna McCollum received her BA in acting for the stage and screen from the UNLV Department of Theater Arts. I remember her work very well in To Kill a Mockingbird over there. Other highlights from her time at UNLV include Reservoir Dogs, African Company Presents Richard III, and you were in As You Like It too, I think, out there. She served as past president of UNLV's African American Student Association of Theater and Film, and you've probably seen her over at Majestic Rep and most recently at the Asylum in Scherzo, Dialogue with a Statue. She's also performed with Vegas Theater Company. Skeleton Crew is going to be her debut with the Publicfit. How's that? Did I get most of that right?
Yes, you did.
Oh, look at that.
Look at you.
Almost 2 for 2. So you heard Anne-Marie and I talking a little bit about the connection between, and this is for both of you, the connection between Detroit auto workers and the sort of tourism industry in Vegas and bringing those cultures together. Do you agree that there's some sort of similarities there? Start with you, Bree. What do you think?
I would agree. Yes, I would agree. I agree in the way that it does happen to be people of color in these positions,
right,
that are, working these jobs that are potentially pay well until something like the pandemic happens.
Sure.
And so again, we're hearing essential worker, and they don't have any essentials, and then it's like, why would those people need to fight for that when that's something that could just be given, when we could find a way to just make that happen?
Right.
Do we need strikes? Do we need things like that? But yeah, we do, unfortunately. We do.
Apparently we do.
Apparently.
Yeah. Maybe we haven't pointed this out yet, and maybe it needs to be brought up. Skeleton Crew is written by a African-American woman. Dominique Morisso is African-American. The entire cast is made up of people of color. You two are both persons of color. And I'm always a little uncomfortable placing labels on a culture that way as a white guy, but I don't know how else to do it. Is it too many eggshells, or is it an appropriate concern?
America is crazy. We all know that. Let's just talk about it.
America is crazy.
The titles that we give, we Black people have just been all these different titles over the past century, like from Negro to, African American, Black at one point. And I know some people, because they tell me to my face, some white people say, "Ooh, do we say Black? Do we say African American? Do we say?" Now it's POC. We've also heard BIPOC, and it was like, okay, what am I anymore? That's why I said the word crazy. Yes,
it is crazy, and it has to be. I don't know how you can color an entire culture with one big strong brush like that. And somehow you have decided what is right for the entire culture. I certainly can't do that. Why would we expect you to?
Yeah, well, look at America. Like, we're this huge melting pot. I get it that we're trying collectively to try to be a little bit more PC and inclusive, but we're that one country that everybody lives here. That's just what it is. So I understand the confusion. it is what it is to me.
Yeah.
But, you know, the more that we learn our roots and our history, that's how we are the ones who, you know, each culture, each person or person of color, no matter which color or which, you know, culture they're from, gets to define who they are. That's the most important part. They have their own voice.
Let me drag this back to the play if I possibly can. Why is that culture so quickly and immediately associated with in Detroit with the auto workers industry? Why is that those two seem so interconnected? Or is that outside of all of our experience? I mean, as actors, as directors, is that outside of our experience of what work is and what auto workers are all about?
It's a little outside of my experience, just straight up, because I don't know Detroit like that. I have, you know, I talked to Trenton a little bit. He's one of our actors.
Trenton Carlson, who's in the show.
Yeah, and he's from Detroit.
Yeah,
you know, and he plays this character who's just like right on the line of being blue collar, being white collar. He is that middle management person, and I think he'd probably have a lot more insight into what you just asked. You know, it's like why are Black people the ones working the line? I think because from my limited, you know, it's like if an industry has a lot of jobs available and they're working class jobs, you know, like just it's the grit, it's the hands on the work. Those are the people who fill those type of positions, just like back in the enslavement times. Who are the people working the land? Well, okay, I don't want to use the word wrong, but the employment, the necessary need for the people doing the labor, those are going to be the ones who are like, hey, let me just get this job because they're available. And I think that Detroit supplied a lot of that, you know, a lot of that labor. So I talked a little bit about the play touching on the notion of being defined by one's job. And is that a cultural thing as well, or is that just a human thing? Are we all sort of looking at ourselves based upon how we define ourselves because of our work and our careers, such as they are? Is that an element of this play? Bree, you've got that curious look on your face.
It's because that's a good question. I would say that's a human thing. I don't know necessarily that it's cultural unless it comes from heritage and family. You know, with my family, my dad used to be a boxer. So it's like boxing in my family is a huge deal. That's something that we have no, you know, there's things like, oh, you know, that's violence. You know, I remember hearing that as a child, people being like, oh, you know, your brother's so violent. But it more so was that we just learned boxing in the home. So if somebody steps to him, he knows how to defend himself, you know? So it's like, I never saw him as that. I just saw him as defending himself in the art that we learned growing up, you know? So it's like, when it comes to, I feel like it has to do with just heritage and what is brought down. I do think that's in the play, though. There is this, my dad worked this, my mom worked this feel. So here I am working in, you know, in this industry because of my family.
Well, you play a character in the play who's been there for as long as the plant's sort of been around.
Years.
She's 21 years in the same.
29.
So 29 years in the same job, right up almost before she would be retired.
Yes.
Yeah, right before 30 years. Is that something easy to identify with? Because you're a young woman who may not have had an opportunity to have a 30-year career in anything.
Yeah, not necessarily. No, but So wait, what's your question though?
Well, my question,
like, is that something, you know, I haven't had a time, I haven't been able to do that, but I have, if you're asking customer service, I've done that.
Well, it comes back to my original question, which is identify, because I can imagine what you've talked about with your father now identifying as a boxer and that being such a very long part of his history.
Yes.
And the character you play having 29 years at a specific type of labor must really make her identify as this thing,
Yes.
right? That is a huge part of her identity.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I can't imagine that you've had a 29-year history of any sort of job.
No,
You're
not
like
of any
14
sort of
years
job.
old.
Yeah, I was exactly not of any sort of job, but of my father. I've watched him.
Sure.
You know, I've watched him fight. Was an amateur fighter when he was 16, fought all the way up until he was in his 50s. You know, and I've seen him and what that is for him. You know, boxing is woven into our bodies.
Right.
Just from him, like when we're small, as soon as you can lift your hands, he's got his little baby boxing gloves, and we're fighting. You know, he's holding the mitts for us. So it feels woven into me. You know, so from that point of view, I can definitely agree. And
So
I can speak from.
So Faye probably, I won't say suffers, but probably exhibits some of those same characteristics,
Oh,
right? There's
yes.
a physical nature to what she's doing and what she has been doing for 29 years.
Yes,
Is that fair to
definitely.
say?
It's definitely in her body, and she is the space that they are within.
Yeah.
You know, she's in it, all up and through it, in the cracks, in the walls. You know, this is her place, and it's where she feels safe. You know, because of how much she knows about it. She knows everything and nothing. It's really hard to pull a fast one on her.
Well, this is where I'll start. I'll reiterate our sort of spoiler warning, because we may start talking about things in the play now that will be revealed in the production, and we may not. I don't know where this conversation is going to go. But since you brought up that physical stuff, Jason, I want to talk to you about the physical elements of the play. You've brought in a whole different type of physicality to the show that's not just I don't know. It's not endemic to the script. You brought it to the script. You brought a rhythm element to the play. Is that mirrored in the physicality of the actors, or is that just simply a tonal thing that you've done in the background?
It leans a little bit more on the tonal side. It's definitely in the actors. We have pieces where they're up and they're making this rhythm and they're doing things physically, but it's more in the transitions. It's more in the world of the play, and especially the building, the factory itself. You know, it speaks, it moves, it's humming, it's making rhythms all the time. So speaking with I
like that. It's almost like you've taken the factory and made it a character.
In a sense, yeah. Speaking with Ashley, she's the sound designer. We've been working back and forth in terms of like, where is the sound fitting? Where is this as a character? Like you just said, how does it help move the play? How does it help inform the play? You know, when do the rhythms speed up or slow down? When are they relaxed? When are they, a little bit more tense? Yeah. And so we've been working on that to try to just get this vibe and this feel going that helps the play along, and like you understand where the tension is, not just in the actors acting, in the dialogue, but it's also in the building itself.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why we chose Jason was because there is a fifth character called the performer. That
it was illustrated in the script, you mean?
In the script.
Dominique Morisso's script.
And then she talks about in the author's note how the play, it operates in realism, but it touches on a magical or ethereal aspect, and that there's a mechanism in place which she describes as mechanical intrusion. And so I think that's what she wants to associate with that fifth character. So what Jason has done is kind of crack that open, and he's doing this rhythmic mechanical element with the cast itself and the rhythm workers that you've also hired for the job.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Jason. Well, yeah, I do. I want to put you on the spot. Is there a sort of rhythm example you can just give us quickly about what first of all, what body percussion kind of is, and how it is literally presented in the play?
Yeah, well, in general, my background, a huge part of my background is doing body percussion. We are the drum. Take away all drums, all sticks, all everything else. Your body can just replicate most of those sounds. So that's what I kind of specialize in. And so here's an example just on my chest, so I don't bounce on the table or knock the microphone over. Here's a rhythm. So just using my chest and my snaps and my hands and claps, there's a rhythm that we would do. So in the play, we've been trying a few different things. We brought in these tubes called boom whackers, which give you a melodic element, That
was my nickname in college.
Come on. we were messing around with those for like a little while and just trying to go with different notes and chords, basically, because they all have a different tone, a different tune, And then we kind of abandoned those. And then we went back to regular sticks, and we're like, let's make the set, the auto pieces, the metal from a car frame or a bumper be the actual sound versus trying to make this melodic sound out of these plastic tubes. Let's let it hear, feel a little bit more like the factory itself. So right now we're working on banging on different things, and we're still, we have another week to go, with rehearsal. So we're going to continue to craft it and find exactly the right element. But we have some rough choreography. We have some rough rhythms going on. It's working as of right now. It still tells the story, but I'm going to just keep my eye out on can we embellish it like a little bit more, and, just try to make it sound like the factory.
As part of the design element, isn't Roxy, who's the scenic designer, there's like a car bumper, and do you know what those found objects are that you'll be working with?
Good question. And that's why in our last design meeting, that's why I asked, can you send me a picture of the, because things are continuing to change and move. And I know that whatever they bring in, she brings in, we'll find the melody, we'll move, we'll shape, we'll shift, we'll just, okay, you bang on that, on this note, you bang it over here, and that's going to be like the easier part, or, just kind of spend some time and just kind of work it out.
Easier part for you.
For me. For me, yeah.
For me, it would be a tragedy.
That's exactly what we did in Stomp. We're just banging on everything, and then we're like, okay, move this here, and that's the bass. Okay, boom, boom, boom. So yeah, we'll get to that part.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because you use a word in your director's note, which I just read the other day and really enjoyed, by the way. But you use a word in your director's note. You use the word pivot. And you say that 2020 was the year of the pivot, not just for artists, but for a country as well. And what you're talking about now is pivoting with new props coming in, and pivoting with a new musical appliance to have to deal with. Is that a big part of the play and a part of your process?
Lord, I'll answer the second one first. Yes, that's a huge part of the process, of what I'm used to doing. Like I said, you introduced me and you said an experiment in body percussion. That's what my company does all the time. So yeah, we're going to throw it all on the table. We're going to start trying some things out to the best that we can, with skill, expertise. And then if something's just not quite right, like Luther Vandross, the curl ain't quite right, It's like, we're going to try and just get it a little bit tighter, a little better each time. But yeah, pivoting is just experimentation.
It's so fun. Yeah. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Are you experiencing that in rehearsal, Brie?
Oh, yes. Anytime I'm like, oh, man, this isn't, he's like, drop it. Let's do something else. Let's find something else. And I'm like, okay, let's find something else. It's just the pivoting process together as this collaboration of artists has been wonderful.
I've worked with some actors, though, that find that frustrating, that they want things sort of set in stone quickly so they can rehearse it over and over again. You don't feel that way.
Oh, no. It depends on the process, sure. But honestly, since the pandemic, I'm ready to work. So I've let go. Those things are a limitation now. I'd rather us all work together and be in the truth right now.
Oh, that's interesting. They're all a limitation now.
Oh, I was just going to ask you. So the rhythm part is a little bit more challenging for you, whereas the acting part, you feel more comfortable?
No, both are pretty comfortable, but it's because like rhythm is already something that, I'm already a dancer. I do music, all of that I'm already in that. So
when you play boxing with your dad, there's a rhythm in boxing.
Exactly.
Too, right?
There is. And so it's like rhythm is already kind of embedded anyway. So finding that together is awesome. It's just so much fun, y'all. It's so much fun. And then, acting also with these people that we've created this music with, it just flows. Everything flows.
How exciting.
Do you like the play?
I love the play.
Yeah.
I love the play. I think it's written absolutely beautifully.
What do you tell people when they ask you what it's about? You're doing Skeleton Crew with Publicfit. Well, what's that play about? What do you tell them?
I tell them it's about the raw truth of people doing work. Yeah. Doing the work together. I always tell them it's specifically about the raw truth. I just think that encapsulates like what the play is about.
Is it a confrontational play? I know, Dominique Morisso has a history of acting. Her father, she talks about herself being her father's daughter. And I don't want to speak for her. She's not here, but in the interviews that I've sort of seen with her, she talks about being her father's daughter. Her dad was a Haitian, an activist, and has written, workers of the power in this country. Does that shine through in the play? Does it feel like a confrontational Workers Unite kind of play, or is it more subtle than that? Jason, what do you think?
It feels more. It does touch on the bigger concept of all of us, but she wrote it so well that each distinct character has their own thing that they're grappling with. It's not like we're all grappling against the same thing and there's one big, and it's like, no, it's like even Trenton's, I call him Reggie all the time. I told him, I said, I'm going to stop calling y'all real names and you are your character. So I was like, Reggie, the character Reggie. He said, dude, he's right on the line. He's just being tugged and pulled both ways, because he's answering to upper management. He's middle management, but he comes from the workers, he comes from that. And he was promoted to this place right in the middle. And so he's the one who has to deliver this news and try to fix things, not just for the workers that he cares about, but also for himself to try to keep a job. He has a brand new family. They just got a brand new house, And so the realness of his, where he's coming at this thing from, to try to protect himself, to try to protect all these workers that he loves and cares for, one who raised him, Faye, is like, it's so specific to him, whereas Dez comes from a whole different viewpoint, Dez is the other male character. The other male character, he can easily be stereotyped, as almost like a thug from the streets who is doing his job, but he happens to be the best at the job. He's just, but is he replaceable when the upper management talks about, well, let him go, And so then there's lots of tug of wars in there, again, like I know you said you're trying not to give too many spoilers away, but
that ship has sailed. I don't think we're capable of talking about this stuff without giving up too much away. So knock yourself out.
Yeah, it's to sit on the outside and watch, all of these characters develop, to know the script, know where they're coming from, but then the actors are breathing life into them, and you see their struggle is so specific to their, like they care for each other, they care for everybody in the room, but they're coming from their own backstory, and they need this for a different reason.
So it's much more nuanced than
nuanced.
Workers Unite Against the Man. There's a more character-based nuance to it.
I love that. That's what I love about how she wrote this script. That's why I like the script, the words itself. What Dominique Morisso did. You care about the people.
Well, you mentioned something about Dez's character potentially being a thug, a stereotype. A stereotype of the thug. And I'm always curious about that, especially in plays that we consider inclusive or ethnic or outside of white experience, that we're presenting what our culture looks at as a stereotype, the sassy Black woman, right? I think there's a real danger in that, because I don't think that's a real thing anymore, or is it? It's not. But if someone were to just sort of blindly describe your character, Bree, someone might say sassy Black woman, and you probably want to punch him in the throat.
You said it, not me.
Yeah. Well, how do we?
No, that's true.
How do we? Yeah. And those are certainly stereotypes to be avoided. Are they? Is that obstacles that you come up against when you work?
When I work in theater, of course. Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially cause I'm, got the body yaddy. So of course, you know what I mean? Like as soon as you have a chest as a Black woman, so you're a mom, so you're a sassy mom specifically, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, sure, I could be that, but I'm not, you're just to place that upon me. I've played so many more characters than just that. I am so much more than just that. So that's definitely something that comes up, but that's not what I felt being cast with Faye, because Faye's so different. She's so different.
Well, describe her for us.
Faye to me is gritty. She's real. She's raw. She's loving, and she can be tender and very funny. So
she is funny. She is funny.
She plays no games, but she's funny. So it's like to boil her down to this sassy Black woman is really doing the character and Faye as a person a disservice.
Sure. Well, I think the play is a disservice too. She also is hiding a pretty, I won't say terrible, but she's hiding a pretty big secret during the entirety of the play that we find out very late.
Very late in the play.
It comes out very late in the play. Is that how much is that a part of her identity? I'll just say she's homeless. She's actually living in the plant.
Yes.
At this point, and for a number of reasons, she has an addiction problem, and she's hurt. And
she carries a lot of heartbreak with her as well, from the love of her life as well, you know, and that, so all of those things combined.
That's another secret. Yeah, I didn't even think about that one. I'm not going to mention that one. That's a good one. That's a good secret. That's a real good secret.
Yeah. She's carrying a lot. But I do think that just makes it so that she can kind of play the room, I want to say owns. It's like she owns the space, so she can then own how people perceive her until she can't, right? Until it spirals out of control for her.
And what causes that loss of control? Is it something in her, or is it just the reality of the world around her crushing in? What eventually brings her downfall there at the end?
I think what brings her downfall is watching the other characters lose everything. Yeah. Potentially lose everything, and her recognizing, okay, I'm at this age, and I'm watching all of these people who still have so much time, how do I proceed? Do I want them, it's almost like do I want them to grow, or am I going to take this in a selfish way?
Skeleton Crew is a 4-character play, of the 5th character being the factory of the rhythm section, as it is. Can you, Jason, just describe for me the other 3 characters? We've heard a little bit about what Faye is all about. Who are the other 3 characters in this play?
So, I spoke a little bit about Reggie. He is the manager. Everybody in the play is Black. So he's the manager. He comes from the working class, but he got moved up. And it's a prideful thing for him, but it's also a necessary thing for him because of his identity struggles with himself. So he wants this, he needs this. He's besides just providing for his family, paying off the new mortgage and things like that, he also needs this personally for himself to prove that he can be this person that he imagines in his mind and not be a stereotypical thug or somebody who could, who can easily go the other direction. So he's working on a few different things. He's multi-layered. So that's Reggie. We have Dez. Dez is there. He is stereotyped even by his manager, even by Reggie, but he has dreams, he has goals, and he has action plans towards those goals. It's not pipe dreams. It's actually, he's working on things that he doesn't always necessarily let everybody in on. He has a shell. He has a necessary outer shell that many Black men or Black men and women, but definitely Black men in Detroit, it's a necessary thing. It's not just by choice. It's actually by...
Describe that shell to me.
Well, a beetle has a shell. Yeah. A turtle has a shell. This is a necessary thing. Those innards are going to be exposed, and not in a good way, because the city itself will eat you up. It will tear you apart. It's just brutal in a way that you need this outside external, protection. So he's built that up for himself. And many people can see that as a stereotype because he plays it well. He dismisses things a lot. You don't really see inside until another character, Shanita. Shanita, for some reason, she's that one that kind of, we see a little crack of his shell and we see, is this a little love relationship building right here? It's like, okay. My voice gets all high when I'm sitting on the side directing. I'm like, I think, Are they getting goosebumps? I'm getting like, yes. Sure. And I know where it's going, but then they give it, I'm like, sure. So Shanita is a very young mother. She is a single mother, and that's been part of her story, is like not having her father, her baby's father there. But then it does leave, like I just said, this open potential of, is there another person who's going to fill this place? And then we kind of start seeing this relationship between her and Dez open up. It's not like we know exactly where it's going, but this potential, I think it's the cracking or the softening of the shells of all of these people who live in Detroit. You kind of really get to see it through that relationship that's starting to bud there. So it's interesting, yeah.
I'm sorry, isn't it Shanita that has the language where she talks about working in the plant and love, and where she talks about loving to be part of that repetition of working, and her love of the repetition in the work, which is not a perspective that I would think is a normal perspective, but I love the language in the play and how she expresses it. She's the character that talks about that.
Yeah. I love that too, because they all have a love for making cars. She expresses it through her language, through her dialogue in the play, like of why she's there and why she chose this, because it's spoken about in the play. She can go work at a copy center and run paper and copies and all this stuff. And it's a lot less manual labor and all this everything. She loves making cars.
It's like being something that is being part of something that's larger than us, and not being not needing the recognition for it.
There's that amazing speech where she actually talks about, is it her who talks about seeing the car and feeling that she was a part of building every piece of it, and that her essence is in that car in some way of having built it. It's a remarkable speech.
So I just find that to be very selfless and a very interesting story point. Yeah.
I like how it speaks to her as an individual character, right? Des also has an aspect of that, of why he's here at this plant doing this thing, of what cars and the car industry means to him in general. But I also think it is speaking to people, like I wrote in the director's note, people are the ones who make these things that make our life more convenient, right? We're the ones who put the love in. These workers are the ones who actually make this thing go for real. If it was a factory, I'm in my imagination, right? Not in the script. But if it was a factory of machines run by machines, and there's only one or two people kind of just seeing if they break down, something about that. I think that's just our humanity and our love. It's like that touch would not be there. You might have a perfect machine until you don't, until it breaks, until it rusts, until it whatever, until the power goes out, but these people and their stories through this play, through the words, like we see why this big industry and why the identity of Detroit is through the people. Yes, they make the machines, but it's the people. And that's where, again, just props to the playwright, because she nailed it. She did.
That's a metaphor for life, right? It is the people, right, that make all of these industries work. And if there's a loving environment in all of these industries, are more successful. Yeah.
So, what's coming up at a Publicfit? Well, our 2021-22 stage reading season continues with, obviously, Skeleton Crew by Dominique Morisso, running January 28th and 29th at the Clark County Library. Diana Sun's Stop Kiss will run for just one night on March 25th and will conclude this year's reading season with Will Arbery's Heroes of the Fourth Turning on June 24th and 25th. As always, admission to the readings is free of charge, but we still really recommend arriving a bit early just to take advantage of the best seating. APF will be returning to the main stage at our main stage, The Usual Place, with Craig Wright's ridiculously inventive Recent Tragic Events. It runs February 4th through the 20th. And our final main stage show of the season, Things I Know to Be True by Andrew Bovell, opens April 1st and runs through April 25th. For more information and specific showtimes or to purchase tickets, please visit us online at publicfit.org. Admission to the main stage productions will require proof of COVID-19 vaccination, and the wearing of masks will be strictly enforced, but we're doing our level best to make our audiences feel as safe and as comfortable as possible. If there's one thing we've learned in the past couple of years in these days of forced isolation and all this pandemic nonsense, we really need these shared theatrical experiences, these emotional stories, now more than ever. And I hope you'll join us. And thank you really so much for your continued support. you know, Dominique Morisso has been in the news recently. She pulled production of a play of hers from the Geffen because of some troubles there that I can't speak to because obviously I'm not there, so I don't want to throw any accusations around. But she ended the production, and she, in some interviews following that, she kept coming back to a line. She said she kept coming back to a line from Skeleton Crew, from this play. And I should say Skeleton Crew is part of what's called the Detroit trilogy. It's this and what are the other two, Amory? Paradise Blue.
It's Pipeline?
No, it's not Pipeline. It's Paradise Blue. And I think it's Detroit 67. I think that's I think it's something like that. At any rate, when all of that controversy happened, she said she kept coming back to a line from Skeleton Crew, which is, I think it might be Reggie's line. You tell me how to fight and stand on some kind of ground in this industry without putting something massive on the line to do it. And that seems like a pretty heavy sentiment for the play. The idea of how do you work so hard and commit to something with so much of your life without really, really committing to it and putting a risk forward. And I think that speaks to Faye's character. She's been there 29 years. She must have risked a tremendous amount.
Oh, tremendously. She has. But also, you know, she decided to be a union rep. Right. You know, she decided to be like, okay, well, these are the things that I could be sacrificing, but let me learn so that I can actually fight for us. So, you know, we can pull together. I'll grab people and I will, you know, fight for what is right. So, but that's also part of her struggle with Reggie is, you know, trying to, you know, teach him in a way like, okay, this is what we can do, you know. Yeah, and he has his ways about going about it, and she has her way. So there's a little conflict in that as well.
You know, these days there's a lot of in the national conversation. There's a lot of talk about, like I said earlier, workers' rights and essential workers and how we treat the people that provide services for us. But there's also in the arts community a lot of talk lately about inclusion and how many female playwrights are represented on Broadway. And Dominique Morisso is one of the few Black female playwrights who's been produced on Broadway, one of literally a handful. So there's that conversation about inclusion and also about workers' rights. And these two seem to sort of smash together in this play. They sort of come together to create this play. Do you feel that, Emery, that was a part of the selection for this show as well?
Well, because we had so much downtime during the shutdown to look at so many plays, that was an important aspect in choosing a plays where there was lots of representation. And, you know, I wanted to work with Jason. We've worked together in the past, and it was funny when we read the play, and I was like, "Yeah, we should do this play." He was like, "Yeah." He was thinking he was going to be an actor in the show, and I was like, "No, I want you to direct it," because we need more directors that are people of color, and we don't have a lot of directors in our city that can direct these plays, and so I wanted him to do that. So that was a key factor in choosing this play and choosing many of the other plays in our season. Is
it? Can I ask you guys just honestly? Is that a frustration for y'all that there isn't that much representation on the director's side from people of color and or is it you work where you can, you do what you can?
You know, there's a lot of frustration in general. to be so real with you, like,
tell me about that. I'm really
it's
curious
like not
about
just
that.
directors for me. It's all of it. It's artistic directors. It's crew. It's stage managers. But it's so for me, it's like more so encouraging so many talented people that I see to get into the role.
Yeah,
you know, it's like grab that. You can be that director. You know, it's beautiful that you were like, no, Jason, you can be that director. You know, because you are. You know, you are. It's just dope working with you too. You know, so. But yeah, it's definitely frustrating. Is there a cure? Not a cure. Is there a solution? I mean, is there a path forward to end some of that frustration? What do we, as a community, what do we do to ease some of that? What do you think, Jason?
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
You take that one.
you open a Pandora's box.
I know. In a good way.
I'm honestly curious because my perspective is obviously from this bald white guy. This old, I gotta say old too, because I come from a generation, right? So this old bald white guy, I honestly have any perspective I have might not even be valid. It might not even be.
Well, let's add in the industry
Yeah.
that we're in is theater.
Right.
The patrons of theater are gray hairs, white people.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
That's who
Yes.
you are serving with your Publicfit theater company.
Sure.
Mhm.
So it's not just you. It's not just
Exactly.
I'm one white guy with one perspective. You know who you're serving as a business.
Yes.
You know that's where your money is coming from. That's the reality.
Well, not just
So-
to be fair, not just our patrons, but our audiences too. We have a very white audience.
Yeah.
As well. I'd love to see that change. And I think, honestly, if we're being very honest, part of the inclusion of plays like this are hoping
Yeah.
to bring more people of color into the audience.
Yes.
Let's start there.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, and that's why. Yeah, when we had those conversations, you remember in the beginning, I was like, oh, when I remember just in the process, we did the reading. I think I played Des in the reading, right? And then I talked to you afterwards, and I was saying, hey, there's a lot of rhythm in here, and we didn't really discuss it in the talk back right after the reading. I was like, are you thinking of really putting this in your season? I would like to just come in as a choreographer or something with the sound and the thing, And then you were like, oh, I was thinking that you could play the role, and I was like, okay, cool. And then we waited a few months, right? And then we came
In
back.
my mind, I was thinking you could play the role of director.
And I was not.
I
really
was in the play. I was like, I want you to do it.
Yeah.
Because I knew I couldn't do it. Okay.
And that's why I loved our conversation when I came here and but that developed. That was not right at the outset that I thought I'm going to direct this play or anything. I was like, number one, and this kind of goes back to your original question, like the frustrations or whatever, is like, plays in this city. One, the theater community is so small. I wish it was more. We all do. We want to grow it. We like when
And it's growing every year. We have to be
and it
fair.
is. Yeah. Soho is down here now.
Right.
We have our standards here. Broadway and the Hood is producing a lot more
Yes.
these years.
Back to back.
So, and at the same time, both are true. I just went to New York last week to go see plays.
Yeah.
I saw 4 different productions, 3 plays and a musical to expand my mind because, part lockdown, but part like some things just are not being produced here. You have to go to other cities to see where is the pulse and what type of stories are, on the business side being sold. Like they're still getting audiences. They're still getting patrons as they have, like you just said, they have slowly introduced and changed what Broadway looks like, I see that's what you're doing. And that's why this conversation with Anne-Marie, that's why it ended up moving and developing because this world just over these last 2 years, just with this pandemic, just that alone, of course, the George Floyd and the huge reaction, not just in this country, but around the world. When we saw those images coming and those people standing up every single city around the world for Black people. And that's the distinction between people of color and Black people.
Indeed.
It is a separate subject. And that's why Black lives matter, not all lives matter. It's a separate subject because in this country, Black lives have been through a specific thing. So to always group us is a detriment to the movements forward for Black people. So,
well, and it's not a monolith
Period.
either. We can't talk about the culture as some sort of monolithic thing that all Black people such and such, all Latin people such and such.
Yeah.
We make that mistake in politics. I think we make that mistake in culture too to suggest that Black culture is a thing. It's not a thing. It's a myriad melange of all sorts of different types of cultures and attitudes and things.
and I understand where that original thought came from, because when at a time most Black people in this country were enslaved, okay, there's one thing that we can all group them together as, but it's been centuries now. Come on, let's move, so yeah. And we've progressed and we moved forward and we've shown this.
Well, we've tried. I mean, it's America's original sin, and it's going to be really difficult for us to sever the ties with that history in any sort of progressive way when we're still very reluctant to acknowledge the very real atrocities of that time. There's a lot of us that I think are just afraid to bring it up because it feels like pulling a scab off and touching a fresh wound and making something that should be scarred over fresh again. At least that's a perception I have. Maybe I'm wrong.
And so we do what we do. We do what we can control. You guys invited us. You invited a new Black play to be read on Zoom. One thing, you invited it to be a part of this season as a stage reading. 2, you invited a Black director. 3, it's like nice. So we make these steps that we can control, because what it does is it introduces and it opens up the door wider for regular humans and in this country to understand and just get one more exposure to. We're not going to fix it all like that. That's never been the expectation, but things like this, putting a play in your season like this with a Black voice, Black writer, Black director, lets us understand each other even more. It puts us all at the table. And that's what we do.
Well, I think it's important. And I think it's because we're so concerned with the power of storytelling and the communal power of sitting in an audience and experiencing a story together. I don't think it's just the makeup of the actors on stage. I think it's the makeup of the audience as well. And as you guys know, after all of our shows and all of our productions, we bring as much of the audience as wants to comes back, and we talk about it. We buzz about the play and we discuss it. What do you guys sort of expect from the buzz, the post-show buzz for this play? Are some of these issues going to be brought up, do you think?
Or what is it that you want to talk about?
Yeah, where do you see, where would you like those conversations to go?
That's going to be number one. This is my honest reaction. Like, I don't have an expectation. I don't know what they're going to ask. So that's for real. I know what I've been focusing on in the rehearsals. So if they actually asking about the play and the subject matters and all that stuff, we're going to be on it. We'll be able to talk and dialogue and everything, And I know it immediate, like we just went into it talks about the rest of our country and the rest of our culture as well. But, I just want to serve the play. I just want the story that's written in these pages to come out in the theater. And that's what I'm super just focused on, So I want to deliver this play out in the flesh, like theater does, and then let their minds go free. And whatever they ask, it's like, I'll try to be as open as a book as I can,
Tell a compelling story and then see where
let's tell the story that's written,
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Bree? Do you have any expectations about audience reaction or sort of the conversation that this play will engender?
Honestly, no. That's so funny. I don't. But I assume that Blackness conversations will come about. Yeah. I assume there will be questions about rhythm and things like that, and about the story. But I don't really have an expectation for what will be asked. Well,
it sounds like I'm suggesting that everybody has an agenda as we come into the show, that there must be some agenda behind it all. And I think you made it clear that the agenda is to tell a really good story, a compelling story with dynamic characters and with rhythm and some surprises, I hope, in the show. And then beyond that, the agenda is perhaps what is really subtextual from the playwright, if there's any at all. Is that fair?
I think this play is, I think what she wants, or at least what I want. Here's one of my expectations.
When you say she, you mean the playwright?
The playwright, yeah,
okay.
Dominique Morisso. This is accepted as, not that it was rejected, but accepted as an American play, not just a Black play. I think that's the real beauty of this script, because each character is so distinct and defined that the audience is just going to really identify with their journey and their struggle. Yeah. And that is just an American play. And they do it through such an American industry, like the auto industry. That's the real expectation before all of this, who's Black, who's white, who's this. And that's why the manager is not a white man. He's a Black man who's dealing with these different struggles in different ways. So I think it moves that if it does come up, I think it's secondary, or it's after the fact that we really connect to these characters as an American industry.
See, I just love that perspective, because it's always frustrated me in reading in the literature or in interviews, or when any of these topics come up, we talk about Black America and white America, and goddamn it, we have America, right? And that if the melting pot is truly to be embraced and to succeed, those sort of distinctions have to stop, and we just have to accept that within this big, umbrella, we have a lot of strange melange of cultures, but to identify, Black America, Latin America, like I said earlier, we can't be a monolith. White America is certainly not a monolith. Black America cannot be a monolith. So I'm really glad you said that, because that really makes me look forward to seeing the story. No, it really does, because a play with an agenda is almost certain to fail. I think. I feel that if you come in with a fist raised or a sort of angry approach to these people, when they leave the audience, they will understand now this thing. I think that's a pretty dangerous.
I had to learn through that through the years, through the past couple of decades of doing shows and performances and theater and and being represented, sometimes being the only Black person in a whole cast, cast of 75, it's like, okay, what's being told here? What's going on? And sometimes I do have the power or the influence to bring an agenda. And I have done that at points. And then later, after you look back a couple of years later and you're like, what happened? And you just kind of analyze it. It's not that it was wrong, because I think, many choices are done in the moment for a certain reason, just like we study history and we don't really understand the full context of everything at that moment. We just kind of look at it through our current eyes, and so everything can look silly or sloppy or whatever. So I don't know. I don't regret any choices or agendas that I may have brought into any one thing in the past, because I think there was a purpose and there was a passion and there was, but I've also grown to for this mindset it's expanded. It's like, okay, no, let's really look at this with bigger eyes, with broader scope, And I think in this play, at least right now, that's my scope right now. It's like Americans will attach to this play. They'll understand what's going on in here. And I think that's, as we're in this pandemic with all these jobs, it's just left and right. We're in this huge, just crazy waves of change right now, and jobs are a huge thing right now over the past couple of years. I think they'll be able to attach to this in that way. They'll be able to identify with a lot of the things going on.
I love it. I love it. I think that's a great place to sort of end this conversation with the idea of
I hope we lead with that.
A universal play. Yeah.
Yes.
When we do the buzz. We're going to turn it over to you.
I think so. I'll stay home that day, Jason. You do it. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's it for this episode of Behind the Buzz, APS continuing conversation about the stuff we do. This was Season 2, Episode 3. I want to thank you, Jason Nias and Bree McCollum, for such an open and really frank discussion about all sorts of things, Skeleton Crew specifically, but a lot of stuff came out today. I'm really glad we had a chance to talk about. You out there, hey, yes, I'm talking to you. If you enjoy these conversations, well, I hope you've subscribed, but have you taken the time to give us a quick review? I mean, your feedback not only allows us to improve upon the podcast, it also helps other listeners across the interwebs to discover these discussions and join APF's unending conversation. You can also contact us directly by email by writing us at behindthebuzz@publicfit.org. And we love to hear from you. And frankly, talking about the work is one of the favorite things that we do. So drop us an email if you like. Behind the Buzz is a product of a Publicfit theater company. It is mixed and edited by Adam Paul with help from Diane Walton and is produced in association with Giant Leap Industries, Adam Paul director / Wandering Minstrel.